December 7, 1941, a morning that changed the course of world history forever. It began like any normal Sunday at the American naval base of Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Sailors were waking up, officers were heading for breakfast, and the base was calm and peaceful. No one imagined that within minutes the sky above them would turn into a battlefield. Suddenly a strange sound echoed in the air. At first, many soldiers thought it was just another military drill, but this was no drill. Hundreds of Japanese warplanes had already appeared over Pearl Harbor, and the largest surprise attack in modern history was about to begin. Within seconds, the peaceful harbor exploded into chaos. Japanese bombers and torpedo planes began raining destruction on the American fleet. Battleships that had been resting quietly in the water were suddenly hit by powerful explosions. Thick smoke filled the sky as bombs tore through ships and airfields. The attack was so sudden that many American soldiers did not even have time to reach their battle stations. For more than an hour, the Japanese aircraft continued their assault, targeting ship, aircraft, and military facilities across the base. By the time the attack slowed down, the damage was massive. Battleships were burning, aircraft were destroyed on the ground, and thousands of lives had been lost. But this devastating attack did not happen randomly. It was part of a much larger plan created by Japan months earlier. During World War II, Japan was rapidly expanding its empire across Asia. The country lacked natural resources such as oil, so its leaders began capturing nearby territories like Korea, Taiwan, and large parts of China to secure supplies. However, this aggressive expansion worried many nations, especially the United States. In July 1941, America made a bold decision. It stopped supplying oil to Japan and imposed heavy economic sanctions. This was a serious problem for Japan because almost 80% of its oil came from the United States. Japan now faced a dangerous choice: either withdraw from China and accept American pressure, or take drastic action to secure resources elsewhere. Japanese leaders decided on a risky strategy. They planned to capture Southeast Asian territories rich in oil, including Indonesia. But there was one major obstacle standing in their way: the United States Pacific Fleet stationed at Pearl Harbor. If America remained strong in the Pacific, Japan's expansion plan would fail. So Japanese commanders came up with a bold and dangerous idea: destroy the American fleet in a surprise attack before the United States could react. For months, Japan secretly prepared for the mission. A powerful fleet of aircraft carriers, battleships, submarines band, hundreds of aircraft was assembled. To keep the operation hidden, the Japanese fleet avoided radio communication and traveled silently across the Pacific Ocean. Finally, they reached a launch point about 370 kilometers from Hawaii. Early on the morning of December 7th, more than 350 Japanese aircraft took off from their carriers and headed straight toward Pearl Harbor. At the base, most American soldiers were completely unaware of the approaching danger. When the first wave of aircraft arrived, the attack was so sudden that it felt like the sky itself had collapsed. Torpedoes slammed into battleships, while bombers struck airfields and hangars. In just 45 minutes, the first wave caused enormous destruction. Then, after a short pause, a second wave arrived and continued the assault. By the end of the attack, more than 20 American ships had been damaged or destroyed, including 8 battleships, and hundreds of aircraft were wiped out. Amid this chaos, stories of bravery also emerged. One of them was Doris "Dory" Miller, an African-American sailor working as a cook aboard the battleship USS West Virginia. When the attack began, Miller helped carry wounded sailors to safety, even though the ship was heavily damaged. Then he did something extraordinary. Despite having no formal training on heavy weapons, Miller climbed behind an anti-aircraft machine gun and began firing at the Japanese planes attacking the ship. His courage under fire shocked many witnesses. Later, he became the first African-American to receive the Navy Cross, one of the highest military honors in the United States. Although the attack lasted only about 1 hour and 15 minutes, its impact was enormous. Before Pearl Harbor, the United States had tried to stay out of World War II, but the destruction at Pearl Harbor changed everything overnight. The very next day, America officially declared war on Japan and entered the global conflict. What Japan hoped would weaken America instead awakened a powerful enemy. In the following months, the United States began rebuilding its military strength and planning counterattacks across the Pacific. In April 1942, American bombers launched a daring raid on Tokyo, marking the first air attack on Japan's capital. It was a symbolic strike that showed Japan the war had reached its own territory over the next 4 years. The Pacific War became one of the most brutal conflicts of World War II, with fierce battles across islands and oceans. Eventually, the balance of power shifted. American forces began pushing Japan back step by step. Yet Japan refused to surrender despite heavy losses. Finally, in August 1945, the United States made a decision that would change warfare forever. On August 6th, an American B-29 bomber dropped the world's first atomic bomb on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. Within seconds, the city was devastated by an explosion hotter than the surface of the sun. 3 days later, another atomic bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. These two attacks shocked the world and forced Japan to surrender, bringing World War II to an end. But it all traces back to that single morning in December 1941.